Hello, kiddos. Let's talk about solution-focused narrative therapy with families. We've already talked about narrative therapy, and this will refer back to that a little bit, but I'll let you reread those materials instead of tying you down with me re-explaining it here in one of these lecturettes. What is it? It's an integrated model, and there are it's integration of two language-based therapies that are working with the idea that this problem is non-pathological. It's not a biological problem here. It's all psychological. This you as a therapist and the client collaborate. What are you trying to do? You're looking for a solution-oriented narrative framework, to use their words, the therapist's words, and the people that form this. And I won't go into the history. You can read that. And you often hear reauthoring. So there's a solution-oriented narrative framework, and it's a way to rewrite the process of the client's life. It abandons the idea that you are the expert just because you're a therapist. Rather than that, you are playing with the idea that a person can, with the right guidance, heal themselves almost. And you also enter into this without the assumption that the client will be resistant. Many times we have to deal with resistance in a client. They're there, yeah, but I'm here, but I don't really want to do this the way that you probably want me to do it, kind of an attitude. This solution focused takes the idea that it's the therapist's job to be the guiding light, so that the idea that there may be resistance doesn't even play a factor in this. How does this thing, what are some of the nuts and bolts? Let's do it that way. People are not problems. That's the idea that this tries to get across. The problem is the problem. Now, you've heard that before. And you can, again, review the other type therapies we've covered already to dig that one up. So the problem is the problem. It's not the person that's the problem. And we want to identify the problem separate from what the client views as their identity. So you make that separation, and then that gives the client a better view of what this situation is. It gives them an objective view. It takes away the subjectiveness out of it, hopefully. That's hard to do, by the way, when you're the one that's suffering. There's an aspect to this. You have life problems when what you're trying to do doesn't align with your expectations. That's the simplest way I know to put it. So here's what I thought it would be, and here's what it turns out to be. And I know millions of examples of that taking place. Well, I wanted to do this, but I settled because I couldn't get into that school, or I couldn't. I know somebody very close to me that wanted to be an engineer, and she couldn't do the math, and her heart was set on being an engineer, and it never happened for her. She's a strong person, and she didn't suffer any of the kind of problems that many people would. So you as a therapist adopt a viewpoint that says that each client possesses needed abilities, skills, and other things in order to solve the challenges. And then you, in essence, are giving them a new view, and they change. They begin over time to change their overall negative view of what's going on. Here's some theoretical assumptions. You can read these. There's a long list of things. SFNT assumes the client's capable of changing, and then you work the conversations around that. You use intervention based on client's keywords, and that's not uncommon in a lot of therapies. You listen to what the client is saying, and then you say, well, you said this about that. Now let's look and see what the meaning of that is. And then you let them assess and reevaluate the language that they're using. And it's that simple. It's what words are being used. You work toward reauthoring the wording that they use to describe what they're going through. So I want you to change that view. Again, you've heard me say this before, sort of like the way positive psychology works. In a sense, it is. Excuse me. How does the change occur? There are two ways. I'm not going to go into them deeply. One path that may be followed is that when a client comes into therapy and they respond well to the discussions, that gives the indication that they want a better life. So what does that tell you as a therapist? You will let the client take the lead. You ask questions that bring the client's wishes, maybe is a good word, related to the future that they're seeking. That's one method of making change occur. The second way is if a client comes in depressed, they're just beat up, and their whole discussion is totally involved in their problem, then the therapist may want to step into the client's view of what's going on and develop a kind of narrative therapy that kind of refers back to our section on narrative therapy with families. It does the same thing. You externalize the problem and you look at the aspects of the problem and see how it's changed the client's mapping, it's called, of their life. So that's a little short overview of how this therapy works. We'll be covering neuroscience, which is a little more exciting, I think, than this solution focused, although this is good stuff. And there's keywords that you probably need to be aware of related to this, but again, you can read them and get a better general overview of this SFNT. All right, short one, I think, but good to go. Talk to you again this week about neuroscience.